الفاتحة. Thank you. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. والحمد لله الذي جعلني من أمتي سيد المرسلين كاتم النبيين طه وياسين أحمد محمود أبو القاسم محمد. ومن المحبين عطرة الطاهرين لعنة الدائمين من الآن إلى يوم الدين على أدائهم. أما بعد، قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وفرقانه الحميد وقوله الحق. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لقد خلقنا الإنسان في أحسن تقويم. صلوات. In tonight's subject is a continuation of the previous themes that we have addressed, and it's a progression from the themes that we have had, which was the power of intentional living, and then we look at the power of critical thinking. And yesterday we looked at one of the most precious commodities that we can have, which is the commodity of time. And indeed now the idea is that having understood the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the intellect that He has given us, through the time that He has given us, I'd like to present a reflection, a personal reflection if you may say, of the value proposition of a human being, of Insaan. The corporate world and the business world has this buzzword. What's a value proposition? What's in it for me if I were to do this or buy this from you or partake of this service? Sometimes in the rat race that we are in, we tend to forget as to how important and how critical a single member of the society is. Allama Iqbal has said, and those who understand Urdu will enjoy this, that fard qaim rabte millat se hai tanha kuch hi nahi. Fard qaim, I will translate, don't worry my young friends. Fard qaim rabte millat se tanha kuch bhi nahi. Moj darya mein hai, birun darya kuch bhi nahi. A person is only something or somebody of some weight when that individual is connected to a society. It is when, and I'm paraphrasing, that it is when the drops in the ocean come together as waves, then the society actually moves. This morning in the Jummah khutbah, or this afternoon in the Jummah khutbah, the Maulana who was here gave a very beautiful simile in terms of the waves, as to how the waves continue, that a wave after wave, that as long as you continue to have knowledge and keep learning, then you are part of that wave. And as long as you become an active and an engaged member of society. Society has different demographics. Each demographic, each age group has a level of engagement. And this wave passes on from a young person to somebody in their golden years. There are certain things that we seem to have miscalculated. And the miscalculation is, our community began to perceive that our youth were a separate entity of the community. These youths were then given youth programs and youth groups and youth X and youth Y. Well, I have a slightly different perspective in terms of the subject that I'm going to offer. Some of you may not believe it, but I too used to be a youth once. One grows into a community just as you grow, that a youth is not separate from the community. I believe that the elders and the youths, or the young men and women, must remember that we are not a species different from each other. We are all human beings and we all have value propositions, and in different phases of our lives we contribute differently, we evolve differently, but we evolve together as a society. And when these are all aligned, then that society moves like a wave. We are a community. We are not a unique community. Every community has children, has youths, has young men and women, and has middle-aged people, and then there are people in the golden years like me and beyond. A society can only progress and grow when we understand the different perceptions and the different expectations of the different demographics, and the beauty of leadership is to carry everyone together. And this is how we progress. So with that preamble, I'd like to move on to the subject at hand, where we are talking about the value proposition of Insaan. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Quran that لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ, that we have created Insaan in the best of molds. Let's reflect for a few seconds. What is a mold? A mold is where you pour something in and a shape comes out. Or it could be a vessel in which you put the essence of something. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put the essence of life in a body that we have, and He has said that we have created you in the best of molds. Meaning that you have the potential to reach the zenith of accomplishment, be it in worldly affairs, be it in spiritual affairs, that you have been given potential to be the best that you can. That is a value Allah has given us, to us as human beings. And a couple of days ago I talked about how a human being can surpass the station of the angels. At the same time, how can a human being go below the level of animals? It is all a matter of that progression and taking on personal responsibility. It must be an I statement. What can I do? What can I do to better myself? What can I do to better my society? And ultimately, the Quran does not talk about a Muslim here. The Quran talks about Insaan, a human being. And the first priority is that before you can become a good Muslim, you must be a good human being. The founder of the Hausa of Qum, Sheikh Abdul Karim Hairi, is known to have stated, and it's a long discourse, on how to ask something from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and what to ask for. And he states that when you ask, it's like going into a toy store and picking up the first little shiny thing that you can get is to ask for dunya. He has so much treasure that when you ask of him, ask something which is lofty. Ask something that is worth it. And he said, when I ask Allah for my hajat, and remember these words, ever since I have read them, they have changed my perception. He said that when I ask, I say, Ya Allah, you made me a scholar, a mujtahid, a great mujtahid. Ya Allah, now I ask you, make me a good human being too. A human potential to do so much is sometimes so undervalued. I went to Bangladesh many years ago. I met a 68-year-old man. He was pushing a cart for 12 hours or 9 hours, whatever it was, for a single dollar a day. We look around. How has the economic system on this planet treated human beings as cattle, as people, who have to be used, when Allah has said that we have created human beings, Insaan, in the best of molds. And therefore, and inshallah the subject will come of Hukukul Ibad and Hukukullah. We'll talk a bit more about that, of our responsibilities to our fellow human beings. Today the subject is one of the status of human beings. That every human being is valuable. And we know that you can go higher than the angels because Allah created them in the best mold, in the best of shape. And to analyze now. And I know it's Friday evening. It's been a long week, but I crave your attention. I will not be doing justice to this podium if I only presented some light stories to entertain you and not give some serious, hard messages here. So, and I'll watch every one of you. If somebody is dozing, I'll call them by name and wake them up. So, no. I'm sure that, I'll be able to, keep your attention. So as we begin, you are what you are because of several things as a human being. Firstly, it's your natural and physical makeup. It's the traits that you're born with. Different kinds, and I don't have time to go into the personalities, but we know that there are different personalities. People have different, some have introversion, some have extraversion. And I don't mean when I say introvert and extrovert because these are wrong terms. When you talk about the development of human beings, they have a trait which is extraversion or introversion. Some are more outgoing than the others. Neither is good and nor one is bad. It's just how our physical makeup is. And then it's habit. A continual repetition of certain acts leads to the emergence of a certain disposition in a human being. You keep doing something over and over and over again because of your job, because of some other things that you need to do, that becomes your habit, and then it forms part of your disposition. And then lastly, it is also a practice and conscious effort. If you continue with conscious effort with something for long enough, then you'd be able to change some of the natural traits. For example, if you are blessed with the faculty of introversion, which means that you are deeply reflective, you are within you, you derive your energy from within you. You do not need a crowd of 50 people to energize you. You will sit in a quiet corner and you will energize yourself. But if you are in a job where you are selling something, the introversion is not going to help you very much. So you have to make a conscious effort to try and change yourself. So these are the three things. For example, if you're normally born to write with your right hand, and God forbid something happens to your right hand, and you're not able to use it, what will you do? You will try and do the functions with your left hand. You will try and write with your left hand. And ultimately, with conscious effort and practice, you will get as good as you possibly can writing with your left hand. In the same way, the traits that we are born with can be altered. Your inner nature may not change, but you have to. But this is the power of the mind and the power of the intellect of a human being. About traits, just to lighten this a little bit, you know, you have different kinds in a society. We have them in one single home. We have them in the Jamaat here. We have them in the wider society. You know, you have a perfectionist. If it's not perfect, don't do it. You have a dreamer who has got great ideas, but there is no action. Then you have the warrior, you know, the fierce, doesn't do anything because things may spoil. Then there is the crisis maker who finds a problem in virtually everything. And then you have the overdoer, taking on every voluntary task that you can find and delivering hardly anyone. All these are traits that we have within a society, and we need to understand ourselves, we need to engage others to say that yes, these are human traits. So, the idea is that you can be whatever you want to be if you make that conscious effort to try and do something so that I can be a useful member of this society, be it my family, be it my community, be it my workforce, or be it the rest of humanity. Shaykh Ustad Mutahari has written a great book. If you have not read it, I highly recommend that we read that book. It's called The Polarization Around the Character of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. I don't know how many of you have actually read the book. Any takers? 1, 2? Okay. So, the book talks about Imam Ali alayhi salam and how did he attract and repel followers. It is a great book to read in terms of understanding the early history of Islam. It is available on alislam.org. You don't even have to buy it, you don't have to purchase it. It's available online in the digital library of alislam.org. He writes that there are 4 kinds of people in a society. 1, there is no impact of that person, that human being, on society. Nor does society have any impact on him or her. The person comes to this world, earns a living, dies and goes away. It's almost like an animal has come, grazed on the land that it was supposed to graze on, and then moves on. No impact upon the person, nor the impact of the person on the society. The second one, Shaykh Ustad Mutahari describes as someone who always has a negative impact. Meaning, wherever they are, society loses. The dictators of this world, there are many, too many to name. Yazid was one of them, and so was Saddam Hussein, and so were many others, whose impact on the society is always negative. And when such people go away, when they die, people breathe a sigh of relief. We're waiting to breathe a sigh of relief in the United States. When such people go away, we breathe a sigh of relief to say, Ya Allah, thank God he's gone, or she is gone. Because the impact is always negative. And then you have those nice people whose impact is always positive. They're nice to everybody. Whether you agree with them or you don't agree with them. Whether you stand on a principle, they'll agree with you. They'll go to your opponent and they will agree with them too. They are the nicest of people. Shaykh Ustad Mutahari calls them diplomats of the Muawiyan ilk. That they are diplomats, they appear nice, but they have no principles. It's which side of the bread is buttered is where they will go with the wind. About them, a poet has said, an Indian poet has said that when you have people like that, the Muslims will give him ghusl with the water of Zamzam, and then the Hindus will go and cremate him because he was all over the place. These are the people who are nice to everybody. And then there is the fourth kind of an individual, of a human being, whose impact is both negative and positive. They will stand for a principle, they have a path, they have a mission, they have a goal. And what happens is that the stronger the mission, the stronger the goal, the stronger the conviction of the person, the bigger the impact of that person positively upon those who agree with him, and perhaps as a leader they follow him. And at the same time, the bigger the passion, the bitter the enemies will be of such a person who stands for a principle. And he says that Mulay Mutaqiyan Ali ibn Abi Talib al-Islam was such a man who had the best of enemies who had the worst of enemies, and he had the best of followers. This is the impact of somebody who has a mission and they have fulfilled their mission of standing on a principle as human being. Salawat. Well, it is that man of mission who keeps teaching us every time. Every time you turn, you will find a quotation from Imam alayhi salam to continue to guide us. This is a treasure. This is a blessing that we have. And by talking about knowing oneself, Imam says self-consciousness is one of the most profitable assets of a person. Self-cognition. Understanding oneself. And there are tools available. There are tools available. At the risk of sounding that I am making a commercial break here, that Nasimco has a leadership program going on in October, I think it's the 5th or the 7th of October, where we actually go through the essence of how do you recognize yourself. If you have the time to go to Toronto for 3 days, it's a program well worth attending, that you'll be able to understand the idea of knowing yourself as to what the traits are, what personalities do you have, the analysis. And this program has been going on by the community for almost 15 to 17 years. Today we have over 1,000 alumni of this program, and it's certainly a well worth attending program if you are able to. So how do you see yourself? How do I see myself? When I look into the mirror, how do I see myself? Mirza Ghalib has said something beautiful. Translated, it means that the dust was on my face and I kept cleaning the mirror because I didn't understand myself. धूल चेहरे पे थी और मैं आईना साफ करता रहा. If I am not able to understand myself, if I am not self-conscious of who I am, then everybody else will seem to be at fault except myself. And this is a trait that we need to understand, and that is why we need to know ourselves. When we look again at the words of Imam alayhi salam to say self-knowledge is the most beneficial knowledge of all, that you need to understand your good points as Insaan, and you thank Allah for them, and then you be happy with them, with what He has given you, and then you continue to enhance in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In order to understand this a little bit further, I'd like to delve into a psychological concept. And friends, again, this is something that needs to be understood if we're going to understand ourselves. There are two words which are sometimes used interchangeably: self-esteem and self-worth. But it so happens that these two words are very different from each other. And why are they important? self-esteem is your perception of other people's view of you. So, if people think that I'm a great person, if people think that I'm a great teacher, then my self-esteem goes up. And if people think that I'm not so good, my self-esteem goes down. That is self-esteem. Get an A grade on a test, you feel great, and your self-esteem goes up. You flunk the test, your self-esteem goes down. So self-esteem is something which is external. A credit score, you try to apply for a loan, a credit score is the lender's perception of who you are as a person. You may have huge assets, but if they don't see it in your report, then your credit is bad. It's somebody else's perception of who you are. Sorry, I had to share this as a health professional. Here it says your blood pressure is fine, your cholesterol is fine, but your self-esteem is way too high. So self-esteem is something that goes up and down depending on who's looking at it. Self-worth, please, let's say salawat so I can get back on the right slide. Yeah. There we go. So, self-esteem is like a balloon. It takes just one prick of a pin to sometimes blow it. But before somebody else does it, let us learn from the Imams alayhi salam as to how we lower that self-esteem that we've built because of other people's perception of me. Imam Sajjad alayhi salam was talking to his companion Zuhri. And Zuhri says, Ya ibn Rasulullah, why is it that when I am walking on the road, people change and go in the other direction? Well, Zuhri had a habit, some of you may have read, of advising people about religious affairs, whether they ask for advice or not. And we have those people, they'll give you advice all the time. And Imam said, Zuhri, you need to understand something. You need to understand human nature. If you understand this, then people will not change their direction when they see you. And what Imam said was a lesson in psychology that can shame any psychologist in terms of the simplicity and the profundity of the message. He tells Zuhri that, oh Zuhri, when you meet somebody who is older than you, then consider that he has had more time to do good works than you have, and therefore respect him. And when you see somebody younger than yourself, then think about it this way, that he has had less time to commit sins than you may have, therefore respect him. And if you meet your peer, somebody who is of the same age as you, then he says, oh Zuhri, think that you know the sins that you have committed, you don't know the good deeds that he has committed, and therefore respect him. The idea is that if I am out there respectful of other people, not being judgmental, let Allah, He's Ahkamul Hakimeen, let Allah be the judge. For me, it is to assist, it is to help. Rather than be judgmental, the idea is that self-esteem needs to come down. And when that self-esteem comes down, because you know the self-esteem is one of the biggest causes of the issue that we have. Today the world faces a strife, and one of the core factors of that is when one human being thinks that I am better than him, I am better than her, then problems and conflicts begin. Who was it whoever first said, I am better than him? It was Shaitan. This is a trait where you respect other people, You may not agree with them. They may be of a different faith. They may be of a different color. They may be of a different language, different culture. Who am I to be judgmental about anyone else? I need to judge, look at the mirror for myself, and when I can control my own self-esteem, then I can be a better person. What we need to do is cultivate our self-worth. Because this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted us, that we are born with as one of His creations, that I am worthwhile. He created me in the best of molds, and I have value which cannot be taken away from me as a human being. That is who I am. That is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed me with. You cannot lose it. You can lose sight of it. You might be able to forget its value, but as a human being, what Allah has given you is of value, and that is the meaning of self-worth. Now, if you have self-worth, my self-worth isn't determined by others. My self-worth is determined by me as to who I am in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Otherwise, it's like you're looking for something, you're looking for self-esteem out there. What you're truly looking for is self-worth. Nasruddin was in the bazaar looking for something. When they asked him, what are you looking for, Mullah Nasruddin? He said, I have lost my pen. So they started helping him to look for his pen. And they couldn't find it for 45 minutes. So one of them asked to say, but Mullah, where did you lose the pen? He said, well, I lost my pen at home. He said, Mullah, you lost your pen at home? Why are you looking for it here in the bazaar? He said, because there is more light here in the bazaar. There is a lot of wisdom in that, to say we've lost something elsewhere and we are looking for it somewhere else. I have lost track of my self-worth. I should not be looking for it about my in the estimate of other people. I need to look at myself and say, what does Allah think of me? That is a cardinal thing to say. What is my Maker's impression of me? What kind of a person am I? He's made me the best of creation. Am I fulfilling that role? And that truly is how you remember your self-worth. So self-worth is the ability to see yourself as Allah sees you, not as people see. And I realized then that I am more than my mind, body, emotion and behavior. That I am a human being created by my Maker, and I am accountable to my Maker, and I want to make sure that He sees me in the way that He does. And when you look at some research, with self-worth, people are more sensitive, morally and ethically. They're more balanced. They're not all the time worried to say, if I open my mouth, what will X think and what will Y think? If I feel it is a truth, I will say it. I will stand on a principle. In personal relationships, they're more productive in their jobs. They're more involved in community affairs. You see people who have that level of self-worth, they understand who they are. They're more involved in charitable works and institutions. We see this around. In my many decades of serving the community, I have seen this at first hand, to say that people who are comfortable with themselves, they don't need to prove to be anybody else to anybody else. They are who they are. They are people of integrity, and they will. Indeed, there is a study at the University of Michigan where students who based their self-esteem in external sources, they reported more stress, more anger, more problems, and conflicts. On the other hand, students who based their self-worth on internal sources actually felt better, received higher grades, were less likely to use drugs and alcohol. There is a lot of scientific evidence in terms of the difference between self-esteem and self-worth. So how do you build this self-worth? This is the human being's potential that we are talking about, that this is ahsani taqweem, in the best of molds. Well, firstly, and particularly to my young friends, we've been there, believe you me. Like I said, I used to be a youth once. Stop comparing yourself with others. This peer pressure is something that is really, really concerning to all of us. You compare yourself to somebody else, you don't know where that's going to lead you. And then to cultivate self-worth, let us add some meaningful activities to our lives. Helping others, generosity. And alhamdulillah, we see that in our community. Particularly during the month of Muharram. The Who is Hussein campaign, for example, marvelous campaign set up by young people of this community that we are proud of, to say that these are our young people. This is where the future is. This is where the community is going. The youth of yesterday are now taking up leadership positions. And there are many such examples, besides Who is Hussein, and where people do some great work. This is where we are. Studies show you have some time, particularly in your youth. Don't wait to say, well, when I retire, I'm going to serve the community. You don't know whether you'll have an opportunity to do so. Idea is volunteering has a very positive effect on how people feel about themselves. It's not only about putting that on your resume, on your CV, so that when I apply to university, I put some voluntary hours and therefore it's going to help me, so I'm going to do some voluntary work. It's more than that. It's going to change your life. At the age of 23, my first visit to India, I was sent by my elders to go to India and look at some of the projects out there. It completely changed my perspective as to what humanity was doing. It changed my life. One visit that I made changed my life because I saw firsthand as to what the other part of humanity was suffering from. So, do not wait. Samuel Johnson said, and I love this quote, he says, he who waits to do a great deal of good at once will never do anything. Do something. If you wait until you can do everything for everybody, instead of something for somebody, you will end up not doing anything for anybody. Idea is, do something. Let's get involved. Life has a purpose beyond I, myself, and me. I have a tea party and I'm only going to invite I, myself, and me is a road to failure because you're not part of a society. So, do whatever you can, even if it may seem a little. The Blessed Prophet of Islam sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, and I quote, that the best of deeds are those that are done consistently, though little by little. Time is going on. I cannot share both the stories there, but let me share the starfish story. Some of you may have heard it. There was a young man on a beach, and he was throwing starfish back into the ocean. When the starfish come out, when the tide comes in and it goes back, it leaves some starfish stranded on the beach. And with the sun, they can't go back, they die. And this young man was throwing starfish back into the ocean. And an old man was watching him from a distance. And he looked at him for about 20 minutes and he could restrain himself no longer. I have more wisdom, I'm older than him, so let me advise him. So he goes and says, young man, I've watched you throwing those starfish back for the last 20 minutes. But there are thousands of starfish. What difference is it going to make? And the young man looks at him, doesn't say a word, picks up a starfish, throws it back into the ocean and says it made a difference to that one. Whatever we are able to do, the idea is that self-worth is calculated and done and gained by doing something that you feel positive about yourself. This quote to say, worry about your character and not about your reputation. Reputation is self-esteem. Character is self-worth. That do not worry about your reputation, because your character is who you are and your reputation is only what people think of you. We get very negative sometimes. And in this day and age of WhatsApp and all the social media that we have, it just takes one person to take something viral and then it kind of completely destroys your entire day thinking about it. Well, if you have self-worth, you have character, you would ignore that to say that is not me, or that's what's being said about me is not me. My self-worth will help me. So this is basically the idea of strength of character, where Imam Baqir al-Islam has said that God has bestowed upon the believers three qualities: honor in this world and the hereafter. And Mu'mineen, these are words of the Aimma alayhimus salam. That the honor in this world and in the hereafter, salvation in both the worlds, and fear of Him in the hearts of the oppressors. This is the value of a mu'min, of a believer, that our Imam is teaching us. Salawat. So lastly, let me end on a very positive note in terms of 6 wishes. This is reported from Imam Ali alayhi salam. He said that a man came to the Prophet and asked him to teach him how both and Allah would love him, his wealth would increase, his body would be healthy, his lifetime would be long, and he would be raised with him, meaning with the Blessed Prophet. And the answer from the Prophet was, if you want Allah to love you, be afraid of Him and guard yourself against sin. If you want people to love you, be benevolent to them and decline what they have in their hands. You know, the idea is that if you go with your hand open, you don't have respect. If you go with your hand to say, I'm giving, then there is respect. If you go with the hand that I'm taking, there is little respect. He said, if you want people to love you, be benevolent and decline what they have in their hands, your self-respect. If you want Allah to make your body healthy, pay charity more frequently. If you want Allah to increase your wealth, then give alms, give the hukuk. If you want Allah to prolong your life, then have regard for your kinship. The sile raham and kat-e raham are so fundamentally important. And this is what the Blessed Prophet is saying. Have regard, do not break relation with your kinship. And if you want Allah to raise you with me, then do prolong your prostrations before Allah, the one and the dominator. So now we have it. We have the self-esteem, we have the self-worth, and we know that if we wanted to increase, here are the 6 solutions in terms of what we can do to enhance our life on this earth. Salawat. Mu'mineen, tonight, as is our custom, we remember a man who found his self-respect, who found his self-worth right in the middle of the battle. It was on the 9th of Muharram, and a man continued to hear the cries of al-atash, thirst, from the camp of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. This man was none other than Janab Khur. As he continued to hear these cries of we are thirsty, he becomes restless, thinking of what a grave mistake he had made by bringing Imam Hussain alayhi salam to Karbala. It is reported that he said, what have I done? Why did I put the son of Fatima in this position? Will Hussein ever forgive me? Will Allah forgive me? Will Bibi Fatima forgive me? Oh, how can I ask for forgiveness? Reflection on the part of Hazrat Khur to say he could not sleep the whole night. He spent the night weeping and begging Allah to forgive him. Here was his dilemma, Mu'mineen. He was between heaven and hell. And he says that himself, it is written in the Maqtal, to say, Oh Allah, I find myself between heaven and hell. I will not prefer anything to heaven, even if I am cut into pieces and then burned. And can I share with you just one scenario and one image as to how hot it was in Karbala at that time. That the animals, the horses were jumping up and down because it was so hot. It was Yazid's soldiers who were putting buckets of water on the hooves of the horses to cool them down so that they would become calm. And as Hazrat Hur watches these gallons and gallons of water being poured on the horses, perhaps he may have sought to say, oh, so much water for the animals, while the children of Bibi Fatima are crying for a few drops of water. There is so much water for the animals and none for the grandson of the Holy Prophet. Al-Atash were the cries that echoed through the ears of Hazrat Hur. Hur could not take it anymore. He calls his son and says, oh my son, I have made a terrible mistake. I have brought such pious and a truthful man to be killed. Oh please, my son, quickly take me to Imam Hussain. I want to beg forgiveness before it is too late. I am ashamed of myself. Will Hussain forgive me? How can I face Hussain? Mu'mineen. On the other side, Imam hears the hooves of somebody coming from the other khaymah. He says, oh Abbas, my brother, oh Abbas, put your sword back. Those two men are not coming to fight us. That is Hur. He is my special guest. I have been waiting for him. Welcome, Hur. Oh, welcome. I have been waiting for you. And Hur says, my master, please forgive me. I am extremely sorry. And Imam Hussain takes Hur by his arms and says, Hur, my friend, I forgive you. I assure you that my grandfather, my father and my mother have already forgiven you. Oh Hur, come to me. मोमिनीन बस कुछ अल्फाज तबरुकन उर्दू में कि और फिर मैदान में जाते हैं और जख्मों से चूर चूर हो गए जब हुर जमीन पर गिरे तो हुर की लाश घोड़ों की टापों से रेजा रेजा हो गई अरे इमाम हुसैन ने देखा तो और जनाबे हुर को अपनी गोद में लिया सीने से लगाया और रोकर फरमाया कि आए वफादार तू भी अंसार में शामिल हो गया मोमिनीन सिर्फ एक सवाल दिल में ये आता है मोमिनीन रज़ादारान हुसैन कि जब हुर ने आंखें खोली तब इमाम हुसैन अलैहिस्सलाम की गोद में अपने सर को देखा मोमिनीन मगर जब फर्जंद फातिमा घोड़े से जमीन पर गिरे और गश में आंखें खोली तो क्या देखा कि कातिल को हाथ में खंजर लिए सीने पे सवार था इन्ना लिल्लाहि व इन्ना इलैहि राजिऊन मातम हुसैन।